Over Fortnite's 7+ year history, we've seen 30 different Fortnite seasons, and we have seen some absolutely abysmal seasons, but we've also seen some incredible seasons, guys. And today in this video, we are going to take a little bit of a dive into some of Fortnite's best seasons of all time. These are those seasons that, you know, if you could go back in time, you would travel back to one of these seasons specifically. I also just want to clarify here earlier in the video what I believe makes a good season. There are a couple things to look at. One, I think on the cosmetic side, the battle pass is super important. I also think that the map, loot pool, and storyline to some extent really plays a big part into the quality of the season. Of course, there's some other things, but I think those are some of the, at the core, the most important things in a Fortnite season. So with all that being said, I anticipate this being a little bit of a longer video, so grab a snack, grab a drink, hang out, and enjoy a revisitation to some of Fortnite's best times in its history. Right off the bat, and of course these seasons aren't in any particular order, but I think the best season in Fortnite history is Chapter 2, Season 2. A lot of people tend to call this season Fortnite's second prime, but I believe that this is actually Fortnite's prime. And it boils down to a couple things. One, of course, I can't say the word or else this video will get demonetized, but there was a certain situation going on in the world during 2020 that caused everybody to be locked in their house. And so what did everybody do? Everybody played video games nonstop. And what is one of the most popular video games in the world? Fortnite. And so most people who had nothing better to do just hopped on Fortnite and gave this new season a try. I think maybe you could make the argument if this season was to be released today, would it have had the same success as it was when it was released 4 years ago during 2020. I think that's an argument for a different video. But at its core, this season was so much fun. Firstly, I think the loot pool for this season, while a little bit polarizing, was still very good. I think you had, you know, the first edition of Mythics, right, which was a brand new thing and something that we've seen continue through Fortnite. You had some of the best ARs of all time introduced, like the Chapter 2 Season 2 AUG, of course, and you also had the Spaz, you had a really good SMG, and you had the heavy sniper in as well. Of course, the Mythics were very strong and definitely needed their tuning. They were, at their core, fun to use. They gave you something to play for. If you got your hands on these, you were going to have a good time. We saw great mobility items like the Choppa. We had a great storyline going into place, and in my opinion, probably one of the best characters in Fortnite history, Midas, was introduced during this season. The storyline in this season really propelled Fortnite for the next couple of seasons, and if you pay attention to that stuff, you understand how important this season was to the overall storyline of Fortnite. I think the Battle Pass was really, really good. We saw the introduction of some absolute fan favorite skins like Brutus and Meowscles, of course, and I just really look super, super fondly on this season. This season was so much fun. I also think they really nailed the new POIs absolutely out of the park this season. They did a great job with assigning each agent, of course that being, you know, your battle pass characters, to their own POI. So of course the rig for TNTina, you had the shark, the agency, the grotto, all that type of stuff, right? And of course, how could you forget Deadpool's yacht? And so assigning each of these POIs to their own unique character that gave their own unique mythic really added a ton of personality to these POIs. And I think that we really haven't seen POIs have this much personality since this season. I think maybe you can make an argument for the Nitro Dome maybe, but you get what I'm saying, right? I really think that this season offered everything for everybody. If you loved storyline, you had that. If you wanted to play the game casually and get a mythic minigun and run through people, you could do that. If you wanted to play the game competitively, you also had one of the best competitive loot pools of all time. If you cared about skins, you had a great battle pass. I just think that this season offered something for everybody to enjoy, and in my opinion, it is the best Fortnite season of all time. Next, I wanted to throw a little bit of a curveball in here, a season that I don't think that a lot of people think about, and that's going to be Chapter 4 Season 2. Of course, this is Fortnite Mega, and I think this season really gets slept on by a lot of people. But think about it, I mean, we had one of the best metas of all time, that being the Havoc Shotgun and the Kinetic Blade. In my opinion, the combination of these two items made for one of the most enjoyable Fortnite seasons we have ever had. You also had some other really good weapons. I believe the overclocked pulse rifle came out this season, and while yes, it was absolutely busted, it was still a really, really fun weapon to use. While I do think this was a great season, I do think it does lack in a couple places. I will say I don't think the battle pass this season was anything worth talking about, and I think that the new POIs besides Mega City I think left a little bit to be desired, but Mega City is one of the coolest and one of the best POIs we have ever seen. It was essentially just Neo Tilted and Tilted Towers just on crack. I mean, I can't explain to you the actual scale of these buildings. It was just like 6 times anything we have ever seen before. I will say though, I do feel like this season lacked a little bit in story, or at least compared to some of these seasons we'll talk about, and of course the one I just talked about, Chapter 2, Season 2. But I can't talk about this season, especially without bringing up ODM gear. ODM gear, in my opinion, is not only one of the best mobility items we have ever seen, but also just some of the most fun mobility we have ever seen. And so you had a season with the Kinetic Blade, which that in and of itself, people will argue, is the best mobility of all time. Combine that with the ODM gear, you could just literally fly around this map. And I think a lot of people enjoy Fortnite when it's fast paced, right? Not when you're, sitting looking for people all day. When you could just go person to person to person, I think a lot of people find that to be really fun. I think this season offered that, especially with the Havoc Pump, which I believe to be the best shotgun of all time. While this season does lack in a few places, I really feel like the gameplay makes up for it, and I would gladly go back to Chapter 4 Season 2 in a heartbeat if I had the chance to. Next, let's go a ways back in time and let's talk about Season 4 of the original chapter of Fortnite. When people say that Chapter 2 Season 2 was Fortnite's second prime, people are talking about Season 3 and Season 4 of Chapter 1 as being Fortnite's prime and peak. And I think you could just as equally put Season 3 here instead of Season 4. I just think Season 4 offered a little bit more. And it's impossible for me to ignore that I am very nostalgic about this season, and like a lot of people, this is when I really started to get into Fortnite. Of course, I played in Season 2 and I played in Season 3, but this is when all my friends started playing, and those people who I never thought that I'd play video games with, I was in class, asking them to play squads the next day. And this game really had that effect on the world. I can't explain to you what this was like back in the day. I mean, I had my 70-year-old teachers asking me about Fortnite. It was really like that, and I think this is where you really saw Fortnite explode into not just a video game, but a cultural phenomenon. It really was that. If you turned on the news, Fortnite would be there. If you opened the Wall Street Journal, Fortnite was there. It was just everywhere, and I think so many people hold this season so close to their hearts. And for a good reason, right? Like, it's not just nostalgia. This season was actually really, really good. Of course, we saw a superhero-themed battle pass, which we did see got done better, in my opinion, in Chapter 2 Season 4, but they took their own spin on some of the world's most famous superheroes. So I think the Battle Pass was really good, and along with that, we saw really the beginning of Fortnite's storyline. We saw the character arc start to develop for the Visitor, and of course the Visitor and the Seven really ended up being the main pieces to what was the Chapter 1 storyline of Fortnite. I vividly remember going on YouTube and looking up what the Seven was, what the Imagined Order was, all that type of stuff, and it really was a special time in terms of the storyline. As well as this, gameplay felt really good, and we actually saw the first Fortnite collab, I believe, with Marvel, and this was in the form of Thanos' Infinity Gauntlet. To this day, this is some of the most fun I have ever had playing Fortnite, and I remember being at school and I just couldn't stop watching YouTube all day of people trying to become Thanos. There was just this gauntlet that would land on the map and everybody would fly for it, and if you were lucky enough to become Thanos, you were unstoppable. And I just think that we don't get things like this anymore. This was so special, and I can't really explain that to you unless you were there. We saw the addition of vehicles for the first time, which had been heavily anticipated. That was the shopping cart. We saw the addition of items like the jetpack, hop rocks, stink bombs, dual pistols, drum guns, all this type of unique stuff, and it was weekly updates. Every week there was something new to do in Fortnite. I could literally make an entire video on how special Chapter 1 Season 4 is to not just me, but honestly in gaming history. And so I'll stop there, but this is one of Fortnite's best seasons of all time. And let's just go back to back and let's talk about Chapter 1 Season 5. And I honestly feel like Chapter 1 Season 5 just continued on to Season 4's success. I think that Season 5 was still Fortnite's prime, and especially because this season released in the summer, so you know everybody was doing anything they could to hop on and just play Fortnite all day. Again, this season progressed the storyline even more, and the storyline was very much so interesting, alive, and continued to move forward. We saw some of the best mobility we have ever seen in a season, that being the introduction and addition of shockwave grenades, quad crashers, rifts, rift to goes. I mean, I could just keep going on. In terms of the actual loot pool, this is where this season is a little iffy to some people. In my opinion, it was okay. It's very easy to look at this season with rose-tinted glasses, but if you watch any gameplay from this season, it was SMG spray. There was the compact SMG or the P90, the regular SMG, you had the drum gun. I mean, it was all hell broken loose for controller players especially. So depending on what platform you play on, you may have liked this season better than others, but I will say the addition of the heavy sniper always has a soft spot in my heart. It is my favorite Fortnite weapon of all time, and this was not the current bum version of the heavy sniper. This was the absolutely broken 157 damage plus heavy sniper we're talking about. I actually also do really like the battle pass from this season. Rook is actually one of my favorite skins of all time, and of course Ragnarok is one of the best tier 100 skins of all time, and the best tier 1 skin of all time, Drift, also came from this season. This also just reminded me, like, remember when they were actually placing the real life Durburger and like Drift stuff in like real life in the middle of like a desert? Like, how cool was that? Like, they were just going above and beyond with this season. And again, I really think the important thing to harp on here is this season just continued Season 4's success, and so it really did a lot right, a lot more right than wrong. And so I do think that this was one of Fortnite's best seasons of all time, and I really don't think that there will be a ton of disagreement here. Next, let's jump forward to Chapter 2 again, and let's talk about Chapter 2 Season 4. Nexus War, simply put it, was the culmination of Fortnite's collaborations. This was literally the definition of a collaboration season, and so for that reason, I think that this season was quite polarizing to a lot of people. If you wanted a Fortnite original skin, you weren't going to find it in the Battle Pass, because this entire Battle Pass, every single skin was a collaboration skin with Marvel. Iron Man, you know, Wolverine, he may be DC. I'm not too sure on the Marvel DC, don't rip me on that. Storm, Groot, all those types of skins we saw in this Battle Pass for totally free, right? Like, well, not free, but you get what I'm saying. Like, these are very good skins that people would 100% have paid for, you know, $10, $15 each if they were in the shop, but they were all part of the Battle Pass. And I was actually on the side of, I loved this Battle Pass. I loved the fact that they did an entire collaboration, and it was a good one, right? They knew they couldn't miss with Marvel. You can't miss with the superhero skins, right? They knew it worked in Season 4, so what did they do? They went to another Season 4 and just did the same thing. I also want to harp on the storyline here, because while some people may have seen it kind of taking a step back from what we saw in Chapter 2 Season 2, the own unique storyline this season we saw specifically with Galactus was really cool. I mean, the entire season there was just this giant figure who was just kind of in the background, and you knew he was getting closer every single day, and that was the truth. Every day he was getting closer to the Fortnite island until one of the greatest live events of all time, where you would fight Galactus within Fortnite. Like, how insane is that? We also saw some really good gameplay here, and I think a lot of people, when you think of Chapter 2 Season 4, you think of the gameplay here, and especially one of the biggest mid-season updates of all time, that being the introduction of Stark Industries. The Stark Industries update really was special, and it brought with it the Stark Industries rifle, of course, along with the whole POI, which a lot of people would pair with the pump, that being the Stark Industries rifle, and you had the pump shotgun. And they kind of did what they did in Chapter 2 Season 2, right? They added new POIs, and then they attached them to a specific character. So we saw that, for example, with Doom's Domain, where you would go there, fight Dr. Doom himself, and get his his unique mythics to that POI. It was the same thing with Iron Man, of course. We saw him at the Stark Industries POI, and he came with his Unibeam and Repulsor, gauntlets, all that type of stuff. And I feel like they've tried that recently with Chapter 5 Season 3, but I just feel like it hasn't hit the same as it did back then. Those POIs just had so much personality and life to them. And just like Chapter 2 Season 4, we saw M16AR, Pump, SMG, you're good. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was just a very like funny business. It was a very straightforward loot pool, and that I can absolutely not complain with. I think simple is better than crazy in most instances. I think that a lot of people really enjoyed this season, so I don't think that this one will come as much of a surprise. I feel like this season was fantastic, and it is one of Fortnite's best seasons of all time. Finally, I wanted to throw in kind of a curveball at the end here, so if you did stay for the whole video, I really appreciate it. You guys help make my dream come true every single day making YouTube videos. But enough of the sappiness. I'm talking about Chapter 4 Season 1. You know, I think at the time of this season, most people would not have considered it to be one of the greats, but I think looking back on it, a lot of people would rather go to Chapter 4 than what we've seen in the entirety of Chapter 5. I actually think Chapter 4 as a whole goes really underrated, but this season stands out specifically for a couple of reasons. One, I think that this season, this is going to be a hot take, but I think that this season has a top 3 meta of all time, and that being the Shockwave Hammer combined with the Thunder Pump. Of course, the Kinetic Blade and the Havoc Pump kind of goes hand in hand with the Thunder Pump and the Shockwave Hammer. And you see some continuity here, right? When you have a really good shotgun and pair that with a really good form of mobility, that is going to be a lot of fun for most players. There is the addition of a ton of new mechanics, right? We saw the addition of augments, which unfortunately have just kind of gone by the wayside, to be honest with you. They seem just kind of forgotten, but they were new, they were fresh, and a lot of people I think really enjoyed augments. They added a unique style of play to the game that we haven't really seen. You also had the ability to capture POIs, quote unquote. You would sit there until the flag raised to the top, and you would cap the POI. It would mark everything, mark all the chests. It was a pretty cool idea, and well, it has been in the game ever since the addition of it. We saw the addition of motorcycles, right? Like, this was a really cool addition at the time. And I had briefly touched on it earlier, but look, let's be honest, we had a really good loot pool. I'm talking Red Eye Assault Rifle, Thunder Pump, Twin Mag SMG, Hammer, and you had heals. In my opinion, those are incredible as a whole, and together they made for an unbelievable loadout and one of the best that we have ever seen. I do think that this season lacks a little bit in story and the battle pass. Personally, I think the Ageless is a really cool tier 100, but past that, I really think this season lacked in that, which is kind of why it's towards, my bottom tier of some of the best seasons of all time, but the gameplay really sticks out. The map felt really good, and guys, I think that this season goes underrated, right, because of the other just unbelievable seasons we've seen, but I actually do believe this is one of the best Fortnite seasons we've ever had, especially in the newer, more modern era of Fortnite. So yeah, guys, that is my list for some of Fortnite's best seasons of all time. I know it was a little bit of a long one, but if you're still here, thank you for sticking around. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below, and I would really be interested to see if you guys wanted to see me talk about some of Fortnite's worst seasons, right? Because I think that could also be a super interesting video. But again, like, comment, subscribe, guys, all that jazz, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.